everyone, welcome to today's video. Thanks so much for stopping by. Today we are at the Columbus Museum of Art right here in downtown Columbus, Ohio. The Columbus Art Museum was founded in 1931 during a time when American museums were just beginning to embrace modern art. From its early years, it stood out for supporting living artists and introducing new ideas to the public. And over the decades, the museum has expanded its collection to include American and European modernism, along with photography and contemporary works. Today, it's continuing that original legacy by connecting people and the community in a welcoming and interactive environment. We first stopped by the special rotating exhibit at the museum. It was titled Tacita Blind Folly and was on display from October 8th, 2025 through March 8th, 2026. Usually when you think of drawings, you think of something planned out, like a sketch before the final piece. But Dean's drawings are the final piece, and a lot of the time, she doesn't fully plan it. The whole idea behind Blind Folly is basically taking a risk, going into something without knowing exactly how it's going to turn out. Instead of controlling every detail, she lets chance play a role, and you can really feel that when you look at her work. There's a lot of movement. Many feel kind of unfinished, but on purpose. Lines don't always go where you expect. Shapes don't always fully resolve. It feels more like you're seeing a process happen, not just a finished image. Another thing that stands out is how she uses materials. It's not just working on blank paper. She uses things like found images, postcards, chalkboards, even film. So the surface already has its own history before she even starts drawing on it. And instead of trying to completely control those materials, she works with them. If something smudges, fades, or even shifts, that's also part of the piece. She's really interested in the idea of change and impermanence. Some of these works could be erased, altered, or damaged over time, and that's kind of the point. They're not meant to feel permanent or perfect. Overall, the exhibition covers a pretty wide range of her work over the years, but it all connects back to that same theme, letting go of control just enough to see what could happen. It really makes the viewer look at drawings differently. It's less about getting everything right, and more about being open to where the process can take you. As we headed upstairs, this next exhibit looked at how artists use repetition and patterns within their work. A lot of art is actually already built on repeating marks or gestures, but starting in the 1960s, artists really leaned into that idea. They began treating art almost like a system or something that could be repeated and multiplied in a structured kind of way, just as items are produced within a factory. At the same time, they also started paying closer attention to patterns within everyday life, like numbers and social systems. Some works even documented these patterns to show how order and disorder exist all around us. This shift also connects to the early days of computers and the growing influence of technology, as well as major social movements that were questioning systems of power at the time. These next few works focus on ancient trees and the impact of a changing global climate. The artist uses photographs as a starting point, then draws over them to bring attention to the shape and presence of the trees. She often removes or softens the background so that the tree itself really stands out. Many of these trees are hundreds of years old, and some are now at risk because of changing climate conditions. In some cases, color is added in unexpected ways, giving the trees an almost surreal look. Overall, the works highlight both the beauty and the fragility of these living forms of nature. This next piece here is actually based on a real historical story from the Austrian Alps. In 1689, a massive avalanche buried hundreds of people, and when a priest came to the site, another avalanche hit and buried him too. But then, unexpectedly, a third avalanche ended up uncovering the priest. The artist was drawn to this story because of its mix of tragedy and strange hope. Created after Brexit, the work reflects her feelings that even after something overwhelming happens, there's still a chance things can shift again and reveal something new. Moving on to the next section of the museum, we come to see some of the more modern and often abstract pieces. This piece by Gina Beavers is inspired by online makeup tutorials. She paints her own lips in the style of famous artists, then turns that into a textured sculptural painting. The work explores how people use makeup and social media to create and express their identity online. This work is inspired by the legend of the Jordan knot, a symbol of a problem that seems impossible to solve. The tangled geometric lines reflect that idea, while also resembling circuit boards, connecting the concept of modern technology and complex systems. There was this interesting piece, which was mirrored, painted, and had bright green sand. I didn't get a chance to read the description on this one, but at first glance, it kind of reminded me of a mini golf course for some random reason. But then as I looked at it longer, it kind of morphed in my mind to feeling more like a memorial of sorts. This drawing by Peter Saul reflects the anti-war energy of the 1960s. Created during the Vietnam War, it uses bold, exaggerated imagery to call out what he saw as deep moral problems within American culture. And this painting here reflects changes in the retail world and the death of big box stores in America, highlighting once popular brands that were tied to companies like Sears. This section, entitled Dream Machines, explored how modern image technology shapes how we see reality. And this painting by Carrie James Marshall explores South Africa's colonial past. It depicts symbols of apartheid and the exploitation of land and resources. This tapestry, which caught my attention, reworks a colonial area photograph from the Philippines. By translating the image into embroidery and textile, and adding symbols and text and even feathers over it, the artist really highlights the long history of oppression and economic exploitation. But the piece also honors resistance, referencing the working class as an army of liberation. This artist here, born in New Delhi and raised locally in Ohio, used burlap and layered pigments to create a sense of depth and texture. Inspired by water and submerged worlds, it reflects the artist's personal and cultural memories, inviting viewers to experience a fleeting and almost dreamlike underwater realm. This piece I looked at for a long time. There was so much to notice. It's a dense assemblage of found objects, shells, bones, glasses, eyes, and plenty more to look at. The artist calls these things congregations and strives to bring everyday materials to life by exploring the idea that even small objects can hold meaning and presence. This work here brings together 10 female figures on antique organ pipes with a music box. The piece celebrates spirituals, which are songs of resistance and resilience passed down through generations. This sculpture here by Smokey Brown actually honors Muhammad Ali and his journey of identity. It was definitely a fun one to take a look at. Next, in the modern art area, there was this porcupine suit. There were pink plastic bags that were filled with breath and love notes. There was this stainless steel caterpillar-like structure. They had painted vases on a shelf, one of which has an alien on it. There was a man covered in doilies with toys coming out of his head. There were musical instruments that looked like human spines, and even pantyhose that got stuck in a fan. After all that, it was time to walk around to the second half of the upstairs displays. The architectural design of the building really stood out to me here. There was so much natural sunlight entering the building, and the cool colors really created a serene environment to take a break between the exhibits. The next room had an optical illusion of a giant barrel balancing on a single rope. Wooden barrels like this were central to the process of European settlement and trade in North America. And here, the image of this rope bearing such a massive weight is meant to suggest the precarious status of nature in a world of outsized human development. Even the gallery walls themselves were curved inward on the sides, appearing to respond to the strain. Next, we enter the part of the museum containing more of the traditional pieces, with a particular focus on European and Western artwork. The hallways themselves were beautifully designed, and it almost felt like it was transporting you back to a different time or place. This painting, entitled Boy Stealing Fruit, gave me a chuckle. The way he locks his eyes with the viewer in the act of pilfering the bruised banana was definitely something different to see. This painting here connected with me in a different way than most of the others. The Sierra Nevada mountains were captured so beautifully here, and it really challenged my perception of time to see a painting from around 1870 that captured the feeling of nature in this part of the country so closely to how I experience it today, over 100 years later. Something about the paint strokes and colors used in this painting particularly drew me to it. Painted in 1935, it was actually a celebration of the farm workers during the Great Depression. As you moved around the gallery, there were a lot of different pieces to take a look at and learn more about. The way this cubist still life challenged perception of everyday objects caught my attention. The second one looked almost like it could have been a paper collage from a distance. These two pieces, made out of carved and painted wood, cover subject matter relating to the Watergate scandal, as well as the political assassinations of MLK, JFK, and RFK in the 1960s. Moving through these galleries, you could see how different artists explore the world in unique ways. Some focus on the beauty and fragility of nature, while others challenge history, society, and even sometimes identity. The materials range from paints and fabrics to found objects and sculptures, and each are chosen specifically to give the work its own texture and its own presence. Walking through the rooms, you can feel how art captures both personal experience as well as larger ideas. And just around the corner down the hallway, there was this stunning atrium. It was such a nice place to relax and take a moment to slow down after looking at all the different exhibits. From the lighting to the curtains and the indoor plants, I just didn't want to leave once I sat down. And there was also this colored glass sculpture at the end of the atrium, which was super funky and cool. Moving downstairs, we come to probably my favorite exhibit in the entire museum. It was entitled Cats. And yes, the entire exhibit was just about cats and the place that they have in art, going all the way from ancient times to modern day. They had cat books that you could read, cat cartoons, an oil painting of a cat in a crate, a still life of a cat, and even an ancient Mayan cat. There was also this interactive activity where you could choose some tags at random, which had descriptive words on them, and then when you saw a piece of cat art that you felt exemplified that word, you could place your tag on the hook near the piece, as well as read the other ones that people had already hooked there. There was a spot where guests could upload a photo of their own cat, and it would show up as part of a slideshow on this mounted TV. They also had a spot where you could draw a cat that you recognized from pop culture. It was so fun to take a look at what everyone else had drawn, from Nyan Cat to Gigi from Studio Ghibli's Kiki's delivery service. There was just so much to check out. I decided to try my hand at drawing the cat in the hat, and then went ahead and added my contribution to the board. In this section of the exhibit, you were encouraged to take a piece of printed paper that had a random image of a cat and then use the provided markers and crayons to draw in your own imagined situation for the cat. It was quite hilarious and entertaining to look at all of these. There were cats in sardine cans, cats fishing, cats shooting lasers from their eyes at a mouse, and even a cat in Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam. You gotta love all the creativity. There was also a station where you could create either a Twitter or LinkedIn profile for your own pet cat. You could even give your cat a report card from school. These were also pretty hilarious to read. This exhibit was just so fun all around. I had a great time there. And as we left this area and headed back towards the front of the museum, they even had a children's area. There was a place for kids to get their energy out and make their own art. Kids could learn the basics of weaving using pre-cut paper of different colors and then pin them up on the wire line to share with other guests. They could make their own sculptures out of small squares of tin foil in another area. And then the last activity we did was this one, where you could get a blank piece of paper and the only thing it had on it was a random line or shape. And you had to draw around it to create your own image. People got so creative with this one. I loved getting to see visitors' art highlighted throughout the museum. Then, before leaving, I of course had to make a stop over at the gift shop. When I first walked in, I was caught by these mid-century modern spinning mobiles. They were so elegant and calming to watch. It would be fun to make one of these myself sometime. But you definitely want to hang them out of reach of any cats, though. I could just imagine them driving pets crazy as they rotate. They had a wide selection of art books, museum-branded mugs, bags, and postcards, all the good classics you would expect from an art museum gift shop. They had these colorful scarves and gloves in this section that were funky and definitely fun to check out. And just look at this jewelry they had. The colors and abstract shapes are all just so happy and fun. You could easily add these to any outfit and it would instantly bring some whimsy. They also had this cartoonish mid-century looking clock and some hanging sculptures that were pretty interesting. And that was the Columbus Museum of Art. Definitely a cool spot to check out if you happen to be in the city. Thank you guys so much for coming along with me. I hope you enjoyed the visit today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!